Welcome to your free English lesson. This series will focus on sentences. This lesson will cover complex sentences. It is important to write when you are asked to. It helps you to learn. You can use a whiteboard, but ideally a notebook would be best. That way, you can keep a record of your learning. There are 5 intended learning outcomes to achieve by the end of the lesson. 1. We are learning to define complex sentences. 2. We are learning to identify independent clauses. 3. We are learning to identify dependent clauses. 4. We are learning to use subordinators to introduce a noun clause. 5. We are learning to write complex sentences using statements, questions, imperatives, and exclamations. A complex sentence is a sentence that has one independent clause and at least one dependent subordinate clause. The independent clause can stand alone as a complete sentence. The dependent clause cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. Dependent clauses can be introduced by a subordinating conjunction, a relative pronoun, or a relative adverb, and they can also function as noun clauses. A complex sentence has only one independent clause. Any other clauses are dependent. This means only one part can stand alone. The other part depends on it. Dependent clauses are commonly categorized as adverbial clauses, which are introduced by subordinating conjunctions like because, although, if; relative adjectival clauses, which are introduced by relative pronouns and relative adverbs like who, which, that; and noun clauses, often introduced by that, whether, if, or WH words. This lesson will focus on noun clauses introduced by the subordinating conjunction that, interrogative words, whether, and if. When we speak or write, we often need to explain ideas, questions, or facts rather than just name people or things. To do this, English allows us to use noun clauses, a group of words that contain a subject and a verb, but function as a noun in a sentence. In this lesson, we will explore how noun clauses are used in complex sentences, how to recognize them, and what words introduce them. A noun clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb and functions as a noun in a sentence. This means it can do the same jobs that a single noun does. A noun clause can act as the subject of a sentence, the object of a verb, the object of a preposition, and a subject complement. Here are some examples. What she said surprised everyone. What she said is the noun clause, and it is the subject of a sentence. I believe that he is telling the truth. That he is telling the truth is the noun clause, and it is the object of a verb. She is worried about whether she passed the exam. Whether she passed the exam is the noun clause, and it is the object of a preposition. The problem is that we are late. That we are late is the noun clause, and it is the subject complement. A complex sentence contains one independent clause and at least one dependent clause. When the dependent clause functions as a noun, it is called a noun clause. Here is an example. I don't know where he went. The dependent noun clause, where he went, is acting as the object of know. I don't know is the independent clause. Where he went is the dependent clause, which is the noun clause. A noun clause is introduced by subordinators. There are three main types. Subordinators are also known as noun clause introducers. Although noun clauses are dependent clauses, they are essential to the meaning of a sentence. Removing them often leaves the sentence incomplete or unclear. The subordinator, that, is a subordinating conjunction. It introduces noun clauses that express statements. For example, I believe that she is honest. The subordinators who, whom, whose, what, which, when, where, why, and how are interrogative or WH words. They introduce noun clauses that come from questions. For example, I don't know where he lives. She asked why they left. The subordinators whether and if are subordinating conjunctions. They introduce noun clauses that express yes or no questions. For example, he asked whether the train had arrived. I wonder if she is coming. Here is an example of a noun clause as a subject. Interrogative plus subject plus verb plus the rest of the sentence. The dependent clause is what the teacher explained. The independent clause is was clear. Without the dependent clause, was clear would require the pronoun it to be the subject of the sentence. Instead, the dependent clause, what the teacher explained, is in place of it as the subject of the sentence. Now, as a complex sentence, it sounds like this. What the teacher explained was clear. Here is an example of a noun clause as an object of a verb. Beginning of sentence plus interrogative plus subject plus verb. The independent clause is he explained. This makes sense as a standalone sentence. The verb explained needs an object. It needs something to explain. The dependent clause, what the problem was, tells us what he explained. So as a noun clause, it is the object of the verb. As a complex sentence, it sounds like this. He explained what the problem was. Here is an example of a noun clause as an object of a preposition. Beginning of sentence plus interrogative plus verb. The independent clause is she is worried about. Without the dependent clause, she is worried about would require the pronoun it to be the object of the sentence. This makes sense as a standalone sentence. The preposition about needs an object. It needs something after it. Ask the question, worried about what? The answer is the dependent clause, what will happen? It comes after the preposition about, and as a noun clause, it is the object of the preposition. As a complex sentence, it sounds like this. She is worried about what will happen. Here is an example of a noun clause as a subject complement, beginning of sentence, plus subordinating conjunction, plus the rest of the clause. The independent clause is, the problem is. Without the dependent clause, that the machine is broken, it could not stand alone. The dependent clause, as the subject complement, expresses the complete idea. Is a linking verb. A linking verb must be followed by a subject complement to complete its meaning. Ask the question, the problem is what? The answer is the dependent clause, that the machine is broken. It comes after the linking verb, and as a noun clause, it explains or identifies the subject. As a complex sentence, it sounds like this. The problem is that the machine is broken. A declarative sentence makes a statement or gives information. Its function is to state facts, opinions, and descriptions. The punctuation at the end of a declarative sentence is a full stop. Form. The word order is usually subject plus verb plus object, adverbial, or complement. Here is an example of a statement. The independent clause is, I know. Ask, know what? The dependent clause, which is the noun clause, is that she is coming to the party. The noun clause is the object of the verb know. I know that she is coming to the party. This is a statement because it gives information. An interrogative asks a question. Its function is to request information or confirmation. The punctuation used at the end of an interrogative is a question mark. Intonation. There is a rising tone at the end of the interrogative for yes and no questions. For WH questions, there is a variable tone. Here is an example of a question. The independent clause is, do you know? Ask, know what? The dependent clause, which is the noun clause, is what time the train leaves. The noun clause is the object of the verb know. Do you know what time the train leaves? This is a question because it asks for information. An imperative gives a command, request, instruction, or invitation. Its function is to ask someone to do or not do something. The punctuation at the end of an imperative is a full stop, but it can take an exclamation mark for force. Form: the word order is varied and requires an implied subject. Here is an example of an imperative. The independent clause is tell me. Ask, tell me what? The dependent clause, which is the noun clause, is who will be in charge. The noun clause is the object of the verb tell. Tell me who will be in charge. This is an imperative because it gives a command. An exclamatory expresses a strong feeling or emotion. Its function is to show surprise, excitement, joy, anger, and admiration. The punctuation at the end of an exclamation is an exclamation mark. The form: the word order is usually subject plus verb plus object adverbial or complement. Here is an example of an exclamation. The independent clause is I can't believe. Ask, can't believe what? The dependent clause, which is the noun clause, is that he won the prize. The noun clause is the object of the verb believe. I can't believe that he won the prize. This is an exclamation because it expresses surprise or strong emotion. Remember, the subordinator that can often be omitted when the noun clause is the object of a verb. The meaning does not change. For example, the problem is that the machine was broken. If we omit that, the sentence still makes sense. The problem is the machine was broken. I know that she is coming to the party. If we omit that, the sentence still makes sense. I know she is coming to the party. I can't believe that he won the prize. If we omit that, the sentence still makes sense. I can't believe he won the prize. Each sentence contains a noun clause. Underline the subordinator. Decide whether the noun clause is functioning as the subject, object of a verb, object of a preposition, or subject complement. 1. The teacher explained what the homework was. 2. I am worried about what will happen tomorrow. 3. What he said during the meeting surprised everyone. 4. She believes that the story is true. 5. We talked about how the problem could be solved. 6. What she decided in the end changed everything. 7. He is responsible for what happens next. 8. The truth is that nobody knew the answer. Pause the video. The next slide contains the answers. Check your answers. 1. The teacher explained what the homework was. The subordinator is what, and the noun clause is the object of a verb. 2. I am worried about what will happen tomorrow. What is the subordinator and the noun clause is the object of a preposition. 3. What he said during the meeting surprised everyone. The subordinator is what, and the noun clause is the subject. 4. She believes that the story is true. The subordinator is that, and the noun clause is the object of a verb. 5. We talked about how the problem could be solved. The subordinator is how, and the noun clause is the object of a preposition. 6. What she decided in the end changed everything. The subordinator is what, and the noun clause is the subject. 7. He is responsible for what happens next. The subordinator is what, and the noun clause is the object of a preposition. 8. The truth is that nobody knew the answer. The subordinator is that, and the noun clause is the subject complement. Here is an extender for anybody who would like a challenge. Rewrite the complex sentences by matching the independent clauses with the dependent clauses. 1. The problem is. 2. She explained. 3. I am interested in. 4. Surprised the audience. 5. They don't know. 6. She admitted. 7. They are concerned about. 8. The reason is. 9. We discussed. 10. I still remember. How the machine worked. Whether the plan will succeed. Nobody had read the instructions. How the error occurred. What happened during the experiment? That the ending was changed. What caused the delay? How the decision was made. Whether the data was reliable. That the results were incorrect. Pause the video. The next slide contains the answers. Check your answers. Some of the answers are interchangeable. 1. The problem is that the results were incorrect. 2. She explained what caused the delay. 3. I am interested in how the machine works. 4. That the ending was changed surprised the audience. 5. They don't know whether the plan will succeed. 6. She admitted that nobody had read the instructions. 7. They are concerned about whether the data was reliable. 8. The reason is how the error occurred. 9. We discussed how the decision was made. 10. I still remember what happened during the experiment. Thank you for watching this video. Watch it as many times as you need to master the intended learning outcomes. I hope that the content helped you to learn more about complex sentences. Please like and subscribe for more lessons. There is a lot to learn, so don't give up. Keep believing in yourself, and you will learn. See you next time. Bye.